Apple Podcasts is only mostly and mainly on Apple products. Like, yes, you can log in, but Spotify is universal. You know, so you can put Spotify on your computer, your MacBook, your iPhone, your any
Well,
device.
see, I didn't put it on my device, on my Mac, and all of a sudden it appears.
Welcome to Charlotte Podcast.Studio, where we take a look at the evolving world of podcasting. My name is Tay. I'm the studio manager here at Charlotte Podcast.Studio.
And I'm Shamar, Tay's trusty sidekick.
I like the way that sounds. We're going to leave that where it is. Today, we're going to dive into the podcasting landscape, its growth trends, popular genres, audience demographics, and the key players and platforms shaping this dynamic industry.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But first, I think we need to talk about what is a podcast.
Yeah. Because for me, listening to like The Breakfast Club.
The Breakfast Club.
The Breakfast Club.
The Breakfast Club.
The Breakfast Club. I really thought, because I wasn't into it at that point, but listening to something like that, you know, I thought that was a podcast because a lot of people jump on the bandwagon. And to dial back a little bit, you know, podcasting is mostly audio.
That's true.
But I'm a video guy, so I'm looking towards video, you know, and I think about Howard Stern when I think about...
Oh, Howard. Yeah. What up, Howard Stern?
Howard got some hits, and he ain't even recorded an album.
That's true.
Yeah. I like Howard Stern. So that's what I thought a podcast was. So what was your idea of a podcast?
I definitely did not think those were podcasts. Those are talk radio shows.
That makes sense.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense.
You got your shock jocks, you know, and they coming in here with chaos and pandemonium. But yeah, it's talk radio though. So definitely not podcast. But now you know what a podcast is. Let the people know.
Yeah, I know now. So according to dictionary.com, a podcast is a digital audio or video file or recording, usually part of a themed series that can be downloaded from a website to a media player or computer, which is nowhere close to what I said or what I was initially thinking.
But I think the part of that or the key thing in that is the themed series, right?
Right.
So you have a show. And that show is focused on a particular theme. The theme that I like most is true crime. You know, every episode, you know, you're going to get a true story about a crime that was committed, and you know what to expect. Now, taking it back to my boy Howard Stern and my folks over there at the Breakfast Club. Yes, they interview celebrities, talk pop culture and stuff, but it's not a theme in this. You don't know what you're going to get on a day-to-day. Honestly, you don't know what you're going to get segment to segment sometimes.
You don't even know what you're going to get within the segment before or after the commercial breaks.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah. That makes sense. And it's just crazy how this industry has grown over time. And just in the last few years, not even just over time, but just the last few years.
Right.
So like 2023 alone, there were over 2.7 million podcasts globally, which is up from 1.5 million since 2020.
Yeah.
Since 2020.
That's crazy. Now, listen, I know that's when I started diving into the world of podcasting was 2020, because that's when, you know, everybody was stuck at home. It was the pandemic, so a lot of podcasts came out the woodwork. So I would be interested to know what it was before 2020. But even with this, 1.5 million in 2020, and it jumped to 2.7 in 2023. That's less than 3 years for it to jump like that. That is crazy. And what is it today? Because you saw what we are in 2024. Where we at now?
I think it's 3.2.
Crazy. That's crazy. So 2 point some odd, you know, in less than 4 years. That's crazy.
Yeah. 2024, 3.2 million podcasts.
So if there are 3.2 million podcasters or podcast episodes out there, how many people are listening to this stuff?
I'm remembering, I'm calculating.
Carry the one.
Yep. Subtract the two.
Yep.
2 billion.
2 billion.
2 billion listeners since 2023.
That's wild.
2024, there's 4.3 podcasts.
Okay.
With 2 billion listeners as of 2023, which is approximately 78% in monthly podcast listeners since 2018.
Y'all see how he did that math in his head? That boy, you saw he moved right there, and then that 78% just dropped.
Yeah, with a little eye twinkle right there. You got to put the eye twinkle in, because if you don't twinkle the eye, you're going to miss it. You had to divide by the square root or something.
So listen, with that many people listening to podcasts and this many people producing podcasts, clearly got to be some money in there somewhere. Talk to me about the money. What kind of money are we talking about?
Podcasts as an industry is not broke.
They ain't broke.
Talking it's estimated, projected. That's a better word. I don't want to say estimate. It's projected to exceed $2 billion in 2025.
So this is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
And that's driven by. The only reason I keep looking up is because I got my notes up there in the air. You know how we look up?
Yeah, the cloud.
So
you got to get it out the cloud.
I got to pull it out the cloud. So that's driven by advertising and subscription models.
Okay.
To these individual people that have their own podcasts.
Okay.
So that equates to something crazy like $1 per
listener.
$1 per listener.
Yeah.
In the industry.
Sheesh. Listen, we trying to tap into some of that money. Hey, advertisers, come on over here, holler at us.
I need $1. Let me stop before we get canceled on YouTube. I don't want them talking about copyright infringement.
Right.
So, let me see. $2 billion. That's about $1 per person. But then you have to break that down into the genres. You have to break that down into the genres and the audience demographics. Every time I try to say those two words together, I be wanting to say Dodians.
Dodians.
Don't ask. Don't ask. That's why I have to say it slow.
The Dodians.
So, the majority of the listeners is, I was about to say us, then I had to remember how old I was. I ain't putting my age out there. But most podcast listeners are listening to true crimes. Let me rephrase that, because I don't want to put that out there the way I'm wording it. True crime podcasts have a popular age group of 18 to 34-year-olds.
Okay.
And you got other things like business, self-improvement podcasts, sports.
Let's not move too far, because I want to talk about this. What generation is that? 18 to 34. These millennials.
I think that's the younger
Zenners, Zellini. I don't remember all these generations, but 18 to 34. So they're listening to true crime.
Yeah.
I want to know, are they listening to it to get some ideas?
I hope not. I hope.
Or are they listening to it to just learn from the past how crazy the baby boomers were?
I think the thing is, based on my cousins that I know, they like more scary movies than, like, we had Jason, we had Freddy Krueger, we had Michael Myers.
Yes.
They're seeing the new Michael Myers. They don't know who Freddy Krueger is. So it's like, then the other thing for me too is probably video games. You got
so they just listening to real people, real things that happen.
Yeah. So it's like, I like the way that game is. And then they find a podcast that hits on, I don't know, Resident Evil type stuff. Yeah. Without the aliens and stuff. The crazy stuff. Like what's your boy's name?
I'm not gonna know it.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh, I do know that.
Stuff like that.
Yes.
I hope they're not taking notes. I just hope they're not taking notes of how to execute this stuff.
Right. Like, how did they mess up? Let me figure out how to make sure that I don't.
So how did he get caught? or the bombers. I want to call them bombers. In Boston?
The Boston Marathon bomber?
Yeah.
Okay.
I never really knew how they shaped that into words.
Gotcha.
But, stuff like that. So 18 to 34-year-olds are the ones that are
listening to true crime.
True crime.
All right, let's get past the true crime now. Talk about some of the other genres and stuff they got out there available.
you got sports.
Yep.
You have business. You have education. You have religion.
Yeah.
And you have to think that those are just topics. Because with sports, you've got football, basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, tennis.
Right.
And you have to think about their subcategories with those genres. And, pretty much forming down into what they call a niche, which is like a very narrow bandwidth of subjects, topics, things you talk about within that space.
And within that sports, right, you can niche down even more. So we're in football, you're talking about college versus, professional basketball as well. So you could take that as far as you want to, or you can just say, you know what, I'm just going to focus mine on the defensive line. Who has the best one? Now you're comparing the defensive line across the entire league or the franchise, whatever. I'm not a sports head, so I don't know why I picked that one to try to do the examples on. But I hope it sounded good.
I don't do sports either. That's why I'm just saying, like,
okay.
Sound good. Sound real good. I don't know what he's talking about. Now, we would get into business. We both know business.
Yep.
We can talk about business.
Right.
We talk about business when we're not even trying to talk about business.
That's true.
But you break that down. You got entrepreneurship. You got management. You have, leadership roles. You have things of how to run a business. You have things of how to be a consultant. Things like that. And that's why I was about to go off on a tangent, but I'm not going to do it today.
All right.
I'll save that for
save the people.
episode 6 or 12 or something. So
but it's just very unique. That's because, at first, wrapping my mind around how you can have so many podcasters and podcasts, I don't want to say episodes, shows. That's the word I was looking for, shows.
Yep.
Because you can cater to specific interests. You can cater to people's specific passions. You can have a creative podcast, being a creative. But if you want to drill that down, hey, I'm a photographer. Tay focuses on video. He focuses on music, music videos. You could just dissect it in so many ways, and people do that, and you will find your community in that. So I think that's pretty dope that, you can go on there and find just about anything that you want.
Anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Because,
again, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people out there. And the other thing, too, is how crazy it is that you got so many different platforms that you can put this stuff out on, right?
Right.
So you've got Spotify. By the way, Spotify, as of June 2024, Spotify's in the lead. We finally caught Apple Podcasts. We're number 1. And we're going to be like the Lakers. And hopefully Apple isn't like Kobe, where he's just like, shh. Or LeBron, shh, we're not done.
Y'all see these Android users, how they always come in here? Okay.
Yeah.
Finally.
But you also have to think about it, too. Like, Apple Podcasts is only mostly and mainly on Apple products. Like, yes, you can log in, but Spotify is universal. So you can put Spotify on your computer, your MacBook, your iPhone, your anything.
Well, see, I didn't put it on my device, on my Mac, and all of a sudden it appeared. So I think that's how they took over. They started, forcing themselves on everybody. But we're not going to talk about that right now.
Yeah. Side note, that's kind of like Internet Explorer being the number 1 web browser because it opens up on every computer.
Are they number 1, or is it what's the one on Chrome being number 1 now? We got to do that research.
You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, they changed it to Microsoft Edge.
Yeah, it's Edge now.
So you have to go through Edge to download Google Chrome.
That's true.
Google Chrome doesn't come on there.
That's true.
So that's probably how Spotify was able to take that jump. And so yeah, you got Spotify, you got Apple Podcasts, you got Amazon Music. Those are the main 3 places where people play or listen to podcasts.
Right.
I don't remember the exact number. I think between those 3, it equals something crazy like 62%.
Okay.
I can't remember, so don't quote me.
Okay.
Because there are other things that are on the list that get like literally like 0.1%.
Right.
And of course, it wasn't something I was thinking about. But yeah, so yeah.
They get 62% of the listeners.
Yes, with those three
Those
combined,
three.
if I'm remembering it correctly.
They got the major portion of the market, but it's a lot of them out there. The podcast ecosystem is crazy. And, of course, me as a Apple user, I just like how I can, listen to it in my car and then pick up, when I get inside the studio, I can pick up where I left off from in the car and stuff like that. So that whole ecosystem, if you will, is pretty dope. But yeah, even though those are the top three, there are so many. There are platforms that I've never heard of, but people do be listening on those platforms too.
Yeah, some of them I don't think I could pronounce properly, but yeah, they got a lot of platforms. So it's not just those three, but I will say, for the sake of pushing a podcast, like, I do music.
Yes.
And when I put my stuff out there, there's like music that can get played all the way in like India.
Mm-hmm.
And surprisingly, you see people listening in India as well as the major podcasts, music space that has nothing to do with Spotify or Apple or Amazon Music.
And that's what I like about podcasts as a whole. And I'm going to compare YouTube in here as well. Mm-hmm. You are now putting, just like the internet itself, you're putting the control in the hands of the consumer. They can pick and choose what they want to listen to and where they want to listen to it at. And so that's a great thing for these independent creators. You could start a podcast with no problem, with little setup costs involved, which we're going to get to in another episode. But, you can put it on any platform you choose to, and you can actually syndicate to all the platforms. And now people across the world can listen to your true crime story. I don't know why I keep bringing true crime up, but
probably because the age demographic is just pretty wide with hopefully non-crazy people.
Right. Right.
So.
But yeah, so the platforms are I'm not going to say endless, but it's multiple to choose from. It makes it easy for, you as a listener to tune in, and it also makes it easy for the creator to get their stuff out there. Now, I want to focus on thinking about, since I compared briefly to YouTube, I want to now bring it full circle and bring YouTube in this conversation. So you have exceeding $2 billion by 2025. We're already a multi-billion-dollar industry of podcasts. And for people out there, podcast is strictly the audio. That's what a podcast is, right? An audio file.
That part.
A video podcast is adding this element where you have the 3-camera setup and all of that good stuff, right? This is newer. It started a few years after the podcast boom or whatever. So if you got $2 billion in adverts just for audio only, now that we're incorporating the video podcasting, how many dollars are going to be incorporated into that? Because there are going to be people, myself included, I prefer to tune into a video podcast because I want to see the people, Drink champs and all that. Love watching it because I want to see what they got going on,
Facial expressions.
Yes.
Come across visually, not audibly.
And then the nonverbals, I want to see how you looked at him when he asked that question or whatever,
Yeah, because I know I make a lot of faces myself, and I try not to just
he does
look so plain, but at the same time, not try to like talk with my face.
Right.
It happens, y'all. It happens.
I talk with my hands, y'all. I be trying to land a plane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to see that. So the whole thing with this video podcasting now coming into play, those dollars for the audio side are not going away. All they're going to do is add more dollars to the video side. So it's going to be a lot of money in this industry. And I'm glad we at Charlotte Podcast Studio have gotten in at the lower level. And now we're just going to grow with the industry.
Yep. Right here on the foundation.
That's the word I was looking for. That sounded so much better than lower level.
Yeah, because you definitely threw us in the basement.
Yeah, you're right. And we're not in the basement, people. We have us a nice loft.
Yes, we do. 2-story. Thank you.
2 of them.
Yeah. But yeah, the foundation of this video podcasting space is, I'm trying to choose my words wisely.
Yes.
Because I don't want anybody to take it left. But I'm going to say what I got to say. It is a thick foundation, and it is a widespread foundation. And we're in the midst of, what do I want to say? Not groundbreaking, but we're starting. We're growing. Level 1 is almost complete.
Right.
Who's to say what's going to happen as we go up this elevator? And who knows where the ceiling is going to get placed?
Pioneers in it. I love that. Yeah, we are pioneers, people.
You hear that?
I'm just his trusty sidekick, and I love that from me. Again, I'm Shamar. I'm trying to close us out, and I just totally what's our outro? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you got something out of this podcast. Hopefully you were educated. Hopefully you were entertained. Just expect more of this in the future.
Yes.
And again, my name is Tay. I'm a studio manager at Charlotte Podcast.Studio. Look us up. The email is, let me dial back. Let me give you the website first. The website is charlottepodcast.studio. And then you can contact us at info@charlottepodcast.studio. So, again, I'm Tay.
Hey, and I'm Shamar, his trusty sidekick. And if you found any value in this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to us as well, because we got so much content that we're going to be putting out here. I think it's going to be dope for you all, those that want to start a podcast. You can learn some things from it. And then it's going to be dope for us as well, because like I said, we are at the foundation, not lower level. The foundation of this industry, and we want to build community and we want to grow with you all. So appreciate y'all tuning in. Yeah,
we appreciate y'all, and see y'all next episode.
All right, take it easy. Peace.